Today, we're diving into a really powerful idea, one that sits at the intersection of neuroscience, anthropology, and psychology. It's called the Transformation Program Hypothesis, and honestly, it might just challenge everything you think you know about mental health crises. So let's just start with the central, radical question this whole framework is built on. What if the most intense and scary crises of the mind, the states we call psychosis or a breakdown, aren't a sign that something is broken at all? What if they're actually the beginning of a necessary and even adaptive process? Okay, so here's the absolute core of it. This hypothesis suggests that what we call mental illness is often a completely natural, built in transformation process. Think of it like a vital software update for your entire self. But the problem is that update has been blocked or interrupted before it could finish. So the shift in thinking is huge, from seeing a disease that needs to be cured to seeing a process that needs to be completed. So breakdown or breakthrough? I mean, how can something that feels so destructive, so much like a breakdown, actually be a breakthrough in disguise? Well, the whole idea really hinges on a single fundamental process that gets triggered in us. And this is that process. It's called the transformation program. The idea is that this is hardwired into our brains. It's an innate part of being human. It works in two stages. First, dissolution. Basically, the old you falls apart, and then reorganization, where a new you is built. And the key is, this whole thing kicks in automatically when your old way of being, your old personality just isn't cutting it anymore in the face of reality. Now, to really wrap our heads around this, the source material gives us this incredible metaphor from nature. Instead of thinking about a broken machine, I want you to think about metamorphosis. Let's talk about the idea of the human chrysalis.
Okay, so we all know the story, right? Caterpillar, chrysalis, butterfly. First, you have the stable caterpillar, just doing its thing, but then it goes into the chrysalis. And here's the part we usually gloss over. It doesn't just sprout wings in there, it completely dissolves into a kind of primordial goo, a cellular soup. Total chaos. And only from that soupy chaos can the butterfly reorganize itself and emerge. That breakdown isn't a side effect, it is an absolutely necessary part of the breakthrough.
And this quote just nails the whole argument. Imagine you didn't know about butterflies and you cut open a chrysalis. You'd see that goo and think, oh my God, this thing is diseased, it's dying. You'd see chaos and dysfunction. The hypothesis is that modern psychiatry often does the exact same thing. It finds a person in that messy, vital, in-between stage, and, mistaking it for a disease, it tries to stop the process instead of protecting it. So you might be wondering, if this is a natural hardwired program, why is it causing such a crisis for so many people now? This is so crucial. The argument is that our biological hardware, our brains, hasn't changed. We still have the transformation program installed. What's changed is that we've lost the cultural software to run it safely. We've lost the rituals, the elder guidance, the community support, all the things traditional societies built to contain and guide this incredibly powerful process. It's like we still have the engine, but we've completely dismantled the car around. So what happens when that neurological engine fires up, but the cultural car is gone? Well, you get stuck. You get a state that this framework calls arrested transformation. Now, there's a technical term for this, and it's a bit of a mouthful, but it's so important. Iatrogenic liminality. Let's break it down. Iatrogenic means caused by the medical treatment, and liminality means being stuck in a threshold, an in-between state. So this is a state of being frozen in that messy chrysalis phase. Not because of the crisis itself, but because the interventions we use are designed to suppress the process, not to help it finish. And this just puts the human experience of that state into stark relief. You're not the caterpillar you used to be, but you're being prevented from becoming the butterfly you were meant to be. You are stuck in the goo. And the hypothesis here argues that it is this state of being stuck that we now diagnose and manage as a chronic mental illness. And if you're looking for evidence, the argument is that we've seen this play out on a massive, tragic scale throughout history. You can look at the psychological impact of colonialism as a horrifying natural experiment. When indigenous cultures had their transformation technologies, their most vital ceremonies, their social structures systematically destroyed, the result was a kind of soul wound. Generations became trapped in the state of arrested transformation, leading to these devastating epidemics of despair, addiction, and suicide. So, if the biological process is basically the same in everyone, what's the one thing that separates a successful transformation from a chronic condition? Well, according to this framework, it all comes down to one single, incredibly powerful variable: meaning. And this right here is the fundamental challenge to how we currently view mental health. You can scan someone's brain with an fMRI, you can measure blood flow, you can look at neural pathways, but can you image meaning? Can that machine detect a sense of purpose? Can it measure whether a person feels held and understood by their community? The argument is that the most critical variable in this whole equation is invisible to our current biological tool. So let's just lay it out side by side. On the one hand, you have the standard biomedical model. It sees symptoms as a malfunction. The goal? Suppress those symptoms. And its focus is the brain. But the transformation model sees those exact same symptoms as a meaningful part of a process. The goal isn't to stop it, it's to complete it. And it's not just looking at the brain, it's looking at the whole person in their entire context. The goals are completely different. And this isn't just a philosophical debate. There's real-world data. Look at the open dialogue approach from Finland. When they treated a first psychotic episode, not by immediately suppressing it, but by surrounding the person with social support, family, and dialogue, by creating meaning, the results were, well, they were astounding. 83% of people returned to work or their studies. 83! Compare that to the typical 25 or 35% with conventional treatment. It proves that the container, the context, the meaning, it matters a lot. And this quote, it's just so poignant. It perfectly sums up our modern problem. The capacity for this profound, shamanic-level transformation is still there. It's still emerging in people. But it's happening in a culture, a village, that has completely forgotten what it's looking at. We've lost the map. We don't recognize our own healers. And so we're left with this enormous, forward-looking question. If our innate capacity for transformation is still intact, but the cultural containers that once held it safely are broken, then the challenge isn't just about finding a new drug to stop the process. The real challenge for all of us is to figure out how we can start to rebuild those containers today in our own communities. How do we create a world where a breakdown is understood and supported as the sacred, messy, and necessary path to a breakthrough?